Welcome back to Community Roundtable. Our guest today is Karin Wang and also Katy Lee. We're here to talk about Proposition 8. Our last segment, we talked about the 2000 year we actually passed a Proposition 22. Now I want to come back to another issue. I think this is probably the number one issue that's been talked about regarding to Proposition 8, which is education in school. That the same-sex marriage could be taught in school. Katie, why don't we start with you? What's your argument about Proposition 8 if it doesn't get passed, that it will get taught as young as kindergarten?
Well, education is certainly a very important subject for us, especially as Chinese Americans. We bring our children here to the United States. We want them to get a good education, especially living in Walnut. I live here in Walnut myself since 1990, and we have excellent schools here. And we want our children to get a quality education. And Proposition 8, you don't even have to ask what would happen after it passed, if it does not pass. It's already happened. You've heard about the case in San Francisco where a group of first graders were taken to witness a marriage ceremony of their teacher and her lesbian partner. And the school says that was a teachable moment for the children. Well, teaching what? Obviously, there is some indoctrination there about teaching about gay marriage, and that's children as young as first grade. Now, in Hayward, California, there's a school that was doing some a coming out day. They call it a coming out day, where they had the gay and lesbian alliance there to do a day of what? Obviously that is also gay agenda indoctrination of our children. That was in elementary school. One of the mothers I was reading that, one of the mother was asking her 5-year-old child, what did you do in school today? And the child said, oh, we're learning to be allies. Well, what are allies? It was the gay and lesbian alliance. So that's happening already, that the schools are, teaching our children about gay marriage and the gay lifestyle. Now, I know that many of the opposition to Prop 8 would say that parents have a right to opt out. But, when you talk about, I understand that the option to opt out only refers to sex education. And when you talk about family or marriage, that's not something where parents are given prior notice. And parents a lot of times don't even know that this is going on in the classroom. Now, of course, when you hear about it and then you say, well, I go to talk to my teacher about it, and what is the school going to say? If Prop 8 does not pass, the school can very simply say, it's legal. We're not doing anything wrong. We're teaching something that is legal, and it's about family and marriage. And I believe that, as parents in a family, marriage is something that parents need to teach their children. It's not something that should be talked about in the public school or, especially not to young children, as young as elementary age. And it's just inappropriate to bring that talk. They don't even know how to read, talking about marriage and couples. And, it's kind of inappropriate to even reach down to that young age.
Right. How do you respond to that, Karin? They can teach as young as in kindergarten. I know that California law does have, give the parents the right to opt out sex. But the issue we mentioned here is health education.
Well, so, and you're right. You're both right. This is, I think, particularly for the Chinese community, probably for all Asian communities, because education is so highly prized. There's probably no Asian American student who could say, my parents did not push me to study harder, did not push me to, value education above everything, sports, extracurricular activities, those kinds of things. And so I do think that this argument is particularly important. I'm glad we're focusing on it. I want to clarify a couple of things. And again, I want to clarify that parents really should look at what the law says and what the law requires and what's actually happening. What was mentioned by Katie is a couple of isolated incidents, and I will respond to them. But I do want to clarify that, as Katie said earlier, what Proposition 8 says is one sentence. It talks purely about whether marriage between a man and a woman would be the only legally recognized marriage in the state of California. There's not a word about schools. There's not a word about education. There's not a word about really anything else other than just purely the legal right to marry. When it comes to education, I think what is happening is that people fear, I guess, a change. People fear that things are different, and so that fear is sort of being projected onto Proposition 8, because Proposition 8 doesn't deal with education. Some people who are afraid of what it means if we socially accept gays and lesbians more, into our community, is that it will become something that students will be taught to be tolerant of. For example, I think that's what Coming Out Day and these other programs do. And I want to say a couple things in response to that. One, first of all, is that the particular field trip that happened in San Francisco. What people should understand is that it's much more complicated than what Katy explained. It involved a school where the teacher had nothing to do with the wedding. The teacher was a lesbian. She was actually going to get married in San Francisco because she finally could. She took a day off from school to do that. The teacher was close to her students, and many of the students loved her. The parents were actually very close to the teacher, and a parent organized the field trip, and they got permission slips. And if you have kids in school, you can't go anywhere with a permission slip. People get, we work with youth in our program as a legal organization. We have to get permission slips for every single thing we do. So the parent says no, the child doesn't go. And so what happened is some of the children did not get permission to go. They did not go on the field trip. The children who got permission to go went on the field trip. And in fact, several of the children who were at the wedding, because their parents agreed that it was okay, one of the parents is actually a principal of a school, they were really upset a couple days ago because the images of their children attending the wedding, which they had actually authorized, they had said, it's okay for my children to go. I've talked to my child about this. My child understands why they're going, what's going on. That the parents made that choice. I agree, parents need to educate and have control over what their children learn, but it goes both ways. Some parents want their children to learn that it's okay to accept a gay teacher. And in that case, two parents spoke out and said, I'm shocked. I turned on the TV and my child is in a Yes advertisement, and I authorized my child to go on this field trip. I've talked to my child about it, and now my child is confused. She doesn't know why her face is in this advertisement and why there's all this scary music, why people are saying these things that she's been taught not to agree with. So I would just want to clarify that particularly is a very complicated example, because while there was a gay wedding that some children went to, every single child that went had their parents' permission to go. And that's the way education should work. I think the opt-out provision is not just about opting children out of classes, sex education classes where issues relating to sex, not just gay marriage, are being addressed, but it's that parents actually have the full right in the state of California. Parents have a lot of rights in the state of California to pull their children out of field trips and other things that they do not feel they support. And so I wanted to just maybe close the part about the education by just saying that I think that what I think is remarkable is in the last probably 10 days or so, almost every individual in the state of California who is an authority on education, a leading authority on education, has come out against Proposition 8, has said that Proposition 8 is a bad thing. They have opposed Proposition 8, and they've also said it has nothing to do with education. And that comes from the superintendent of public schools, Jack O'Connell, who is the head of the public school system in the state of California. And it's not a political position. He is the superintendent. His predecessor, Delane Easton, also said the same thing. Both the current and the past president of the Board of Education for the state have also opposed Proposition 8. You have, I think, the California School Board Association has opposed Proposition 8. Mm-hmm. Locally, I'm sure you've had as a guest many times, two local Chinese American school board members, Henry Lowe from the Garvey School District, Jay Chen from Hacienda La Puente School District. Both have been very vocal in opposing Prop 8 and also telling the Chinese American community that this is not true. This idea that if Prop 8 doesn't pass, that all of a sudden gay marriage is going to be taught in all these different schools. That's not true. We've had gay marriage, actually, honestly, since June, and that's not really happening. It's not happening across the board in all these schools. Mm-hmm. Jay Chen, the school board member I mentioned, actually has taped a public service announcement in Chinese that's available on YouTube that tries to address this in Chinese. He's talking to the parents and saying, look, I'm a school board member, and I want you to know, as a school board member, these rumors are not true, and I'm telling you as a school board member what's really true, which is Proposition 8 will not do these things.
All right. And you want to respond to that, Katy?
Well, the fact is that if the state of California supports gay marriage, it will invariably affect a public institution like the public schools. In order to be consistent with itself, the state has to say that gay marriage can be taught. Now, they may or may not push it, but it can be, and then if it is, then the parents really have very limited right to say no because they're doing something that the law provides for. And in terms of opting out, again, the parents have to have prior notice. Plus, even on that field trip that you mentioned, Karin, that was done during school hours. You know, on the grassroots level, yes, you've had experts saying that, oh, this is okay, but, you know, on the grassroots level,